Hello, everyone.
Hey everyone, happy Friday. Hope you all had a great Easter weekend if you celebrate last weekend and that you all are having good weather like we are, mid-60s and sunny.
And hopefully no one's affected by the earthquake that happened this morning
In New York.
In New York.
Yeah. Crazy. We're used to it from Nicole being a San Diego native, but can only imagine what it'd be like being in New York and New Jersey and
All
feeling
those
an
buildings.
earthquake.
Yeah. It feels like you don't hear about that too often in New York. So hopefully the damage isn't too bad.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, Steve. And this weekend, as if you're a basketball fan, you know it's the culmination of March Madness. Saturday, so tomorrow and Monday, and don't forget the Max promo for I think it's 40% off. It's good through Tuesday, I believe, for a year. And just remember that the men's March Madness is going to be on Turner, and women's is on ESPN, and I believe they're also also simulcast on ABC. So, yeah.
After that, it'll just be a long march of baseball and, at least for me, out and about, not watching sports.
Yeah, and we're actually going to touch on that new free Fast Channel, NBA channel on Roku towards the end. So, and one other reminder before we get started, we won't be here next Friday. Our oldest son has mock trial for his class, and I'll be at that. It runs until like 1 o'clock or something, so we won't be here next Friday. But we'll be here 2 weeks from today.
And our daughter has prom, so I'll be out and about with her, getting her ready for that. So
fun times.
We're just going to be parents on next Friday around the lunch hour.
Yeah, so let's get started.
All right, well, I'm going to kick us off with our first topic, which is actually on Disney. There was a proxy fight in the news this week. I don't know if
it had been ongoing for some time.
It had been, but it came to a head and it cleared up in Bob Iger's favor for anyone who was watching, paying attention. But we wanted to talk about it because I think it's interesting for the streaming industry, and it'll also lead into our second topic, which is about ESPN as a standalone service. So proxy fight, what is that? Basically, there was an activist investor named Nelson Peltz who was trying to become join the board of directors.
Trying to get 2 seats.
Trying to get 2 seats on Disney's board. And so it actually was the priciest proxy fight ever, which I believe he was just buying up a bunch of stocks, to try to have those seats. And he had on his side a fired Marvel exec, and he is known to be a very aggressive investor.
Activist, yeah.
He had argued that Disney needed a fresh voice to hold management accountable. It seemed like, reading the commentary on it, his biggest issue was with the fact that Disney didn't handle Bob Iger's succession plan well. Bob Chapek came in after him, and there was very mixed results on him. Iger had to come back. So he was arguing that, they needed to get a better plan in place because we know Iger isn't going to stay there forever. He also wanted Disney to be more like Netflix and wanted a better plan for ESPN. And so that's why I thought it was relevant for us as streamers to consider. But Iger won, and Iger has said that he is focused on growth, creating value, and creative excellence. So what does that mean? Well, he mentioned some films that are coming out, Mufasa, a movie called Deadpool and Wolverine, and Inside Out 2, as well as a sequel to Moana and a second season of The Bear on FX. That's his creative excellence examples of that. Also touted plans to make standalone ESPN available on Disney Plus. So John's going to talk about that some more.
Yeah, and so really, Disney, they were in the news quite a bit this week, and so their key driver right now, according to Yahoo Finance, is Succession. for the board succession of Bob Iger, because obviously Bob Iger isn't going to be there forever, and they want to continue to grow. And so the big news, as Nicole mentioned, came out this week that Iger said that the ESPN standalone streaming service will be available as a bundle through Disney Plus. Now that immediately brings about a question of, what if I don't want Disney Plus? Can I still get the ESPN standalone service on its own? From everything I read, when asked that question, Iger would not directly answer it. So as of right now, all we can go off of is they're saying that it's going to be available through Disney Plus. Could be on its own, who knows? But knowing Disney, they are going to not make it easy for people. They are not going to make it easy for people that want to get this, and they know people want it. And so to get it as it stands right now off of the verbiage, you will have to subscribe to both standalone ESPN and Disney Plus. And as we discussed last week, the communicated pricing is going to be in the $25 to $30 a month range for ESPN Plus. And at the annual shareholder meeting, Iger compared the planned rollout of ESPN, of the standalone ESPN, to what Disney just did with Hulu being inside of Disney Plus. And we have our video coming out on that very soon. But just the legwork and the tech work that went behind combining the two, and it was quite a bit of work. And Woodage brings up an excellent point of how much different will the standalone service be from the ESPN Plus app. And they said that so it's going to include all of the ESPN channels in its major rights packages. So NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, college, originals, studio shows, etc. They're also planning on having a heavy inclusivity of fantasy sports, e-commerce, and betting. And they don't, and all of those latter three things don't appear at the moment to be included in the planned joint sports venture between them and Fox and Warner Brothers Discovery, which is slated to launch this fall. And so reading all of this, if you're savvy, or what you're seeing on the wall is more bundling. And what this seems like to me, and the Streamable actually last Friday after our live stream had put out an article on, would Disney try and roll it Hulu Live into all of this and make one big massive app? And what that sounds like is cable, just a big cable bundle. And so that's just speculation at this point, but it's interesting to see. And I hope that Disney would allow ESPN to be on its own, but who knows? And
I think they probably will. And
but it's Disney.
Yeah, but they understand, they're not going to cut off that channel if it's going to cause revenue loss for them. So at least in the beginning, I think they're going to come out putting it in multiple ways for people to access it. And then they'll probably, I don't know, this is just my opinion, that they'll watch it and see which option are the most number of people choosing, which is the most profitable. And then over time, they'll, probably consolidate down to whatever that lowest common denominator is, maybe. But
possibly.
And they could, I was just going to say though, will this replace ESPN Plus? I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, and that's to Woodard's point. And in my reading,
sorry, I should say, will standalone ESPN replace ESPN Plus?
Yeah, and I've read nothing on very little on what's going to happen to ESPN Plus relative to this new standalone service. And everything I've read and heard mentioned about ESPN Plus is relative to the joint sports venture, that it would be rolled into that. It would be one of the channels, as it were. And so it'll be interesting to see if they were to sunset it, if they still keep it out on their own. My opinion on Disney is they're going to leave it out there, and it's going to be confusing for people.
Really will.
my speculation on it. Nothing concrete or reputable has come out about it that I have seen yet.
Wouldn't you say, John, like, I feel like the upside of all this movement is more choice, but the downside is more confusion, because it feels like it's going to become even more difficult to know where to watch your team's games.
Yeah, especially if they leave ESPN Plus out there as its own standalone app, then yeah, that will lead to more confusion, because ESPN Plus has so much more than what you can find on ESPN itself, on their family of networks. So it'll be interesting to see, and we'll continue to be discussing. Next story, non-sports related. We mentioned this last week, how DirecTV Stream was removing a number of their A&E networks from the lower tier plan and entertainment, and moving it to the next tier plan. It's like $105 a month, I believe, give or take $5. Well, and it was reported initially that they were going to be getting rid of them just for new customers, but for current customers, they were going to keep them. That's not necessarily no longer the case, and it's not surprising, especially coming from DirecTV Stream. So they are moving or removing A&E, Lifetime, Discovery, Vice, and apparently several other channels from the A&E portfolio from all package subscriptions unless you request to keep them. And they remove them from entertainment, like I said, and for new subscribers, they're only available to the choice package. Now, they did something similar 3 years ago, back in 21. They moved them, and customers complained about having to opt in to keep the same channels as they were told, quote, some customers with low to no viewership of the A&E channels, A&E, Vice, History, and Lifetime, will have it removed from their select or entertainment-based package. This is because we rarely make changes to plans and pricing across our video products. The A&E channels will be removed to impacted accounts, or if opted in, they will be kept at no additional charge. And so sort of just saying they're doing what they do. And it's not surprising to see this, and I can understand the frustration if you're a DirecTV Stream customer, you watch these channels, and all of a sudden you're being told, well, I have to call or go through hoops to get to keep these channels. And I think we're going to continue to see more of this, especially from the likes of DirecTV Stream, as we're seeing continued carriage disputes, pricing issues, and if I were told, all of a sudden now I can only keep these if I bump up to the next tier that's, $15 or $20 more expensive, I would be hacked. And it's just, yeah, sure, you could go get them cheaper elsewhere, but why should I have to? I signed up for this package, and you're obviously keeping them. If you're bumping it up to the next tier, why can't you offer it to me if I'm still watching it? So it's going to be interesting to watch, and I think we're going to see, as I said, continue to see more situations like this in the future. Yeah.
And I don't know if you already said this, but it seems like maybe on DirecTV's side, they're trying to pay a little less because, they have to pay per subscriber for that channel bundle. So they're looking across and seeing, well, if you aren't using it, then we're going to take it away, and we're not going to pay for it for you to just have it there. So it's, you just wonder how many people it's affecting and how much money are they really saving.
Yeah, because ultimately, I as a customer would say, I would want to say, well, are you going to reduce my price? Do I get to save more? And if no, then what kind of service is that?
Right, and you're making me opt into them. So, okay. Well, on to our next story here. This is actually about YouTube TV. So there's been some reporting out that YouTube TV is actually on pace to become the top U.S. pay TV distributor. It's the fastest growing live streaming service. We've known that for a while, but it's actually expected to post a profit for the first time this year. Michael Nathanson of MoffettNathanson said he expects YouTube TV to hit $200 million in operating income this year and $600 million in 2026. with $10 billion in revenue. That's a lot of numbers. I thought it was helpful to take a step back and realize that YouTube TV revenues actually represent still only about 13% of total YouTube revenues. So it's still a small but growing and now profitable slice of the pie. No shocker here, advertising revenues are what are making it profitable for YouTube overall. $31.5 billion of revenue, 70% of total revenue last year came from advertising. And since there's so many more people using YouTube, thus so much more advertising revenue from that channel as opposed to YouTube TV. But other interesting thing just to look at from these numbers is that subscribers, so in February, Google reported that YouTube TV had 8 million subscribers, which put it third behind Charter and Comcast. And then Nathanson is expecting it to hit 12 million subs by 2026, and had said, quote, at the current levels of decline of cable and satellite subscriptions, YouTube TV is on a clear path to becoming the largest pay TV provider in the US. So that would mean overtaking those two, Comcast and Charter, which are both cable providers. So we're just continuing to see that shift. It's not really a surprise. And Google probably has the deepest pockets out of anybody that's been going after the live streaming market. So it makes sense that they would get there first.
Yeah, and hey, Paul. And that James brings up a great question, asking, do we think that YouTube TV will create a smaller package to compete with a new joint sports venture? And I think it's certainly feasible, or it's certainly possible that they could. I don't know how probable it is, but if the joint sports venture is able to launch and they're able to clear any regulatory hurdles, I would think it would cause concern for some, particularly Sling and Fubo. But YouTube TV, I don't know as much, given that they're so big and that they also have Sunday Ticket, and they have, other than ESPN Plus, they have all of the channels. So would have to look at, how would they stand to benefit by offering a lower package, which would possibly result in removing some of those sports channels that they have, maybe ones like the Big Ten and ACC and SEC networks. Who knows? But it's certainly possible. I don't think that they would. I would think we'd see something like that from Fubo or Sling, but we'll see. And back into sports, there was some interesting discussion this week on how Amazon and Peacock both got 2 exclusive NFL games. And as we covered last week, Peacock will exclusively stream Game 1 of the season, the Friday night game in Sao Paulo, Brazil. So the first game in Brazil between the Eagles and, it's reported, either going to be the Browns or the Packers. And Amazon will stream an exclusive wildcard game. And that's, Amazon got the game that Peacock had last year. And they earned that supposedly by performing well on Thursday nights last season. And their first season was a bit rough. They had some technical issues. The games weren't the best. But their ratings were up 24% to 11.86 million average viewers per game. And that's more than the World Series and NBA Finals. And this is on top of just reported today that Amazon, through Prime Video, signed an exclusive deal to carry about 24 WNBA games starting next season. So they're obviously going into sports.
You don't think they're thinking about Caitlin Clark at all, do you?
They certainly they certainly could.
Just don't know if anyone saw that that game between Iowa and LSU had the largest. ESPN said it was the largest single non-NFL event, right?
Not NFL, but it was more than the World Series, more than...
Got a really big audience, so anyway.
Than NBA playoffs, but yeah.
Just an aside.
And so the NFL wanted to reward Peacock for getting 23 million viewers for its wild card game between the Chiefs and the Dolphins. So it gave its first ever regular season game in South America to them. And Hans Schroeder, who is the NFL exec VP of media distribution, said, quote, "We finished last season in the playoffs with Peacock. To open this season, open week 1 on a Thursday night on NBC, and have them be able to promote their Peacock platform on Friday night seemed like a great way to start the season and continue to build a key partner and platform in Peacock and NBC in a really appropriate way," unquote. So, yes, as Steve says, it all comes down to money. NFL wants their fingers in as many pies as possible. They want to make as much money as possible, and it's just another clear sign that live sports are going to become, as we've said numerous times, going to continue to become more diluted and more confusing for people to know where to find. He also said, Schroeder said that the streaming audience on Amazon, I believe it was just on Amazon, is 8 years younger than on broadcast, and that they also watch longer. And so that's really, he called it, quote, a key evolution for...
I think they actually also applied that to Peacock.
Yeah, they did. Okay.
Yeah.
And
so just in general, that's true of the streaming audience.
And the article has said, or the article said that there was, thought or belief that this might be tied to the Taylor Swift effect and how that impacted things, and the NFL sort of poo-pooed that and said, no, that wasn't the case.
Yeah, they said that, but the Peacock playoff game was the Chiefs were in
Chiefs
it.
Game. So anyway, it's interesting to watch, and as Paul said and Andy referenced, there were some layoffs of some pretty well-known talent for the NFL Network, and what I have actually read is speculation to be if ESPN is going hard after, if NFL and ESPN are sort of courting each other and if this was as a means to help bring NFL Network in or the NFL in as a partner in their app. So interesting to see. Next news is we've reported on this last few weeks, but Paramount is getting closer to being sold to Skydance, and this is after them rebuffing a near $27 billion offer from Apollo. And as you might remember, several weeks ago, Apollo made a $11 billion offer for just select pieces of Paramount, and they rebuffed it and said, no, we don't want a piecemeal. We want to sell everything. Word is now out. Reporting has been out pretty significantly that they're getting closer and closer to a deal. That is Paramount with Skydance, and Skydance would buy National Amusements and merge with Paramount, and with David Ellison of Skydance running it. This week again, Apollo offered this $26 or $27 billion offer. They spurned it, said they weren't interested. And any decision that they make is ultimately going to be up to the board. Sherry Redstone began negotiations with Skydance last year, and she is waiting for Paramount Plus to gain steam to try and drive the share price up. But their share prices have not been doing well recently. S&P Global downgraded Paramount's debt to junk status last week, so things aren't looking good. Paramount stock has dropped by about 20% since the start of the year. Rose somewhat on Thursday, but it's not looking good for it, and it looks like that Skydance is going to end up with a deal. So it'll be interesting to see on what Skydance does with it. And I actually read an article on Yahoo Finance this morning, right before this, is that Paramount would still be trading publicly, and that it's going to be a not a typical takeover, as it were. So, and before we get into the next thing, I think at some point WBD is going to start charging for the Bleacher Report Sports add-on. Everything I've read was going to be this summer at some point, at least trying to get people in through March Madness, since they have March Madness. So I would anticipate them starting to charge for that here at some point in the not too distant future. It wouldn't surprise me to see reporting on it sometime later this month, given that March Madness wraps up on Monday. So, do you go on to the next topic?
Yeah, all right. So next topic is just there's a report out from TiVo. They do a video trends report, and this was the most recent one. And it just had some interesting findings we wanted to share with y'all. So I'll just cherry pick out a few of my favorites here. But so 75% of people who responded said they have a smart TV. That's up 12% from 4 years ago. And 20%, only 20%, said they know what they want to watch. So I think a lot of us can relate to that. Most of us, probably 80% of people go on and we're not quite sure what we're in the mood for, and it can be a frustrating experience. Nearly 50% of respondents with household income over $100,000 evaluated their video spend at the end of last year and looked for what could they cut. Average monthly spend as a result dropped $13. So again, probably something a lot of us can relate to, looking for ways to spend less and prioritize what you enjoy most when you're streaming. They also found that streamers use an average of 4 free services, and that's double what it was in 2021. Not surprising, since we know that area fast services are growing real fast. Cost, again, this is not surprising. Cost was the most common reason given for canceling a service, and churn is up 300% over the last 4 years. And just 2 other things to draw out here. So I know I'm throwing out a lot of numbers, but 27% of paid TV subscribers cut the cord and then later resubscribed to cable. So that was interesting, I thought. 64% of the people who responded, which seems awfully high to me, said they are quote unquote cable revivers. So they want to see something like cable or cable come back, maybe just not cost as much. And that made me think that the sports streaming venture and perhaps the future Disney bundle with ESPN could end up boding well. Maybe it entices those people away from cable. And then just finally, 63% of people said they're fine with ads in their content, which gels because it costs less. So they're willing to deal with that.
It does, but you bring up ads to many streamers and they understandably hate them. I dislike them greatly, and I'm watching through a series on Hulu right now in the mornings when I work out, and it's the ads on Hulu where when you compare it against like Max are pretty bad. Yeah, and it's TiVo's parent company. I can't think of the name of it. That puts out this report. And Matt brings up a good point about how Fubo is still calling itself a sports streaming service, but doesn't carry TNT or TBS, any of the Turner networks. And I think these next 6 months, because 6 months from now, we will supposedly have the joint sports venture, and if Fubo and the like aren't able to hold off its launch, I think it's going to cause it's going to be a pretty cataclysmic event for them unless they are able to do something to offer a lower tier package, bring on the Turner networks, do something, as opposed to just we're going to throw 200 channels at you and force you to pay $100+ a month.
Right, because that prices them above YouTube TV, which is really going to be the main the top live TV streaming service. And I think you're right. It shows how desperate Fubo is. The fact that they're suing the joint sports venture and taking out this aggressive ad campaign.
Yeah, which makes sense, because why would I pay double for not all of the same channels, especially if I don't need all of my local networks, or especially if I only really want live sports and can supplement my other viewing needs elsewhere for free or significantly cheaper. So it'll be interesting to watch. And one last note, I believe Paul brought it up earlier, Roku announced this week that they are launching what they're calling the first NBA Fast channel. And it's an NBA Zone on Roku. And for the time being, for a limited time, it's going to be available exclusively on through Roku. And at which point, I would imagine once that's done there, it'll be made available elsewhere. But it's going to feature re-airs of classic games, other NBA content, plus channel highlights and series. And I know for us, we have an NBA fan in our home, and he's excited about it. And it's just interesting to see how Roku is, offering this. And I personally anticipate seeing more of it in the future, because just with the huge growth and expansion of the fast space, and people just wanting classic games or wanting to watch highlights, and that may not need access to all games, or may not want to spend that money, and it would be, it'll be interesting to see. And I think that leagues like the NFL, is what I'm just saying, like the NFL would be taking note and see this, because it's only going to create more following for them. They may not directly make money out of that free, other than through the ads. They could make money elsewhere. And
they will make money off the ads. And I think it's also about the NBA, kind of like the NFL, wanting to spread themselves out everywhere where people are. And maybe they feel the audience skews a little younger here too, or who knows. But I'm sure they believe it's going to be good for them in order to do it. So I don't know if you saw the question over in chat about that Paul had here. If you just asked if you know the official date that Amazon will take over Bally Sports.
I don't. I read last night or this morning, that the bankruptcy proceedings could go into the fall now, could go into November. Prior to that, last I had read was that it could be a couple weeks that Amazon could take it over. And I personally believe that Amazon is really, and they're really motivated to get this. But I think part of it's in the hands of the bankruptcy courts. So to my knowledge, everything I've read, there's no official date, and we'll finish the live stream and there'll be someone reporting that it's coming in a week or something. But everything I've read, there's no official date as of yet, but that it's soon in the offing, and hopefully it's sooner rather than later. So
yeah. Well, that's our news for the week, y'all. I'm sure it'll be a busy next 2 weeks. We won't be here
just
next
as
Friday,
a reminder.
But we'll plan to be back the Friday after that.
On the 19th.
Yeah, on the 19th. And we'll look forward to catching up with y'all again. Thanks for tuning in, and hope you have a great weekend.
Yes.
We'll see you next time.
See you guys.